Kapalakov, our learner, distinguished guests. This evening is dedicated in memory of an extraordinary individual, Summa Olshan. We give him honor this evening. And we have two families involved, the Fisher family and the Olshan family, families both of which are jewels in the crown of Great Neck, and we thank them and we honor them tonight as well. I'm going to present my remarks independent of the first two speakers. And in the question portion, you can bring those remarks in if you wish, as you wish. So these remarks will start with a clean slate, very direct, very straightforward. So here we go. Is there any concept which we can say with certainty that always existed? Is there any concept or entity that we can say with certainty always existed? Okay. So, some philosophers might have said God always existed, and God may have always existed. Some philosophers may have said the universe has always existed. But can we say that with certainty? Objectively, can we say that with certainty? We cannot say that with certainty. Now, from my perspective, one has to answer that question in order to build any philosophy or any metaphysics. One has to come as close as possible to answering that question. After many years of thought, I came to the conclusion there's only one concept that one can say with pretty much certainty always existed. And that concept is one word: possibility. It's the only concept that I've found, surveying the scene for many decades, since childhood, that I could say with pretty much certainty, possibility, I can say, always existed. It's a little abstract, it's a little subtle, and it's the nexus of all my works. I then developed that possibilities at the center of God, if there is God. So possibility does not preclude God. Possibility becomes, in my philosophy, the center of God. There are three classic problems in all philosophy, which one cannot get around, and religious philosophy. One is, what is the origin of the cosmos? This is given a shorthand notation called cosmogony or cosmogony, depending how you want to pronounce it. The second problem, is theogony, the origins of God, if there is God. We're operating in a religious context, we're making the assumption that there's God. But classic philosophers, classic metaphysicians make no assumptions whatsoever. Their job is to make no assumptions. And this is a metaphysical evening. It's not a religious evening per se, it's a metaphysical and religious evening combined. The classic philosophy makes no assumptions. The third key problem, and this involves religious philosophy, is theodicy. If there's a God who's all-powerful and all-merciful, why is there gross evil? So again, the shorthand notations are cosmogony, theogony, and theodicy. Okay? The shorthand notations. Now, I develop the concept of possibility. I say possibility has a first cousin. The first cousin of possibility is quest for potential. Then I devote 2 books developing the concept of quest for potential. But quest for potential is anchored in its what I call its first cousin, possibility. And I like that because possibility, I can say with certainty, always existed. And the reason I sat down to write 2 books over 25 years is because quest for potential simultaneously solves all 3 problems very elegantly. Those 3 problems, plus another 10 philosophical problems at a minimum, all simultaneously, in one simple blow. And that's what motivated me to sit down and write these books. If it only solved one problem, anybody can solve a problem. You can postulate the gamma force, the theta force, the vector force, whatever you want to call it, and explain how this phenomenal force solves this one problem of philosophy. And no one will have any idea what you're talking about when you write the book or for 1,000 years after you write the book. But if you have a concept anchored in the one concept, which might actually be eternal, for sure, in other words, with certainty, and then you take that concept and you simultaneously solve 3, 6, 9 problems in philosophy, then even those demanding Jews might say, let's take a look at the situation. Now, I hinted out tonight, not that I'm going to get into it, a roadmap. And the first sentence in the roadmap is, possibility is by definition eternal. So I've only talked about the first line in this roadmap. And this roadmap is a roadmap to the Summa series. And the Summa series is all enveloping. The Summa series basically says, quest for potential is at the core of the divine, and to a great extent is the divine. And it's in the realm of rabbinics and theologians to develop that theme if they so wish, to explicate divine potential, to explicate the divine if they so wish. It's above my pay scale, it's above my pay grade to do that. It's not my realm. I deal in basics. I deal in pure, simple basics. As pure, simple logic as I can possibly do. But I add on the other material to show how it works with orthodoxy, it works with Judaism. But I'm not the rabbinic. I'm not the theologian. I'm writing classic, I'm proposing a classic, original, what I believe to be powerful and simultaneous solution metaphysics. At this point, I'd like to open up to questions. If anybody has any questions or attacks. Yes, sir.
And your first problem was cosmogony?
Right.
Okay, so does that assume that there is a beginning to the cosmos?
Yes. It doesn't assume that there was beginning to beginning, but it assumes there's a beginning to the cosmos.
Right.
In other words, classic science, contemporary science will all agree, or 99.9% will agree, that the Big Bang is the origin of the cosmos as we know it today. And contemporary science will also agree that no one knows what caused the Big Bang. No one knows what ignited the Big Bang. This series alleges to provide a solution to that as well. I'm not a scientist, but conceptually, and we work through the roadmap itself, which again is a summary of the book. It provides a conceptual spark to the Big Bang as well. You see, beginning is a tough word, but we all know sort of what beginning means. So as best as we can understand beginning is what we're talking about. As best as we can understand. Because I'm proposing that quest for potential is eternal. So rabbinic will say, and I'm fine with that, God is eternal. Because God is potential. Or the core of God is potential. And again, it's beyond my skill set to deal with, so to speak, God. It's too big a word for me, even though I'm forced to use it. But it's not really my turf. I'm really dealing in the class of metaphysics, which means more than physics. Core, eternal concepts.
So if you were presented with a scientific diagram that explained what happened before the Big Bang, how would that change the way you address that issue?
Well, let's see it. Let's see it. No one has presented it, or no one has presented one which is accepted by.
Okay, but if you were presented with one, would you agree that would alter your perspective on the question?
Any new information impacts everybody, including myself. But no one has proposed it. And if they can see a diagram of what caused it, what caused that diagram? What caused that which you say always existed? And my hypothesis, my postulate is you always track back to only one possible cause, which is very abstract in and of itself, which is possibility. It's so ephemeral. It's like a wisp in the air. And I propose, as an aside, that's why everyone missed it. When I was a youngster, looking around, obviously the players in the field of philosophy, metaphysics, Jewish or otherwise, are not slouches. Obviously, these are big guns. These are highly respected guns over the centuries. So, and obviously, they also all fail. They all fail. It's clear. No matter what anybody tells you, they all fail. It's not even close. The greatest of them fail terribly. They do not come close. How can they all miss it? And why do all the big guns of philosophy miss it? Because to some extent, I say they're trying too hard. They're trying too hard. They're trying to find a thing which caused everything. You can't postulate that anything caused everything, because where did that thing come from? You have to get more subtle, more relaxed about this. You have to step back and try to discern that which truly you can say with conviction, not just to your fellow philosophers who all smile and say you're brilliant, but actually to a straightforward person on the street. Does this make sense? Do you buy into this? When I was in first grade, I was in Yeshiva Dov Rebbe, and our teacher was Miss First. And we had Miss First for our first grade teacher. I said to myself, we're going to have Miss Second for our second grade teacher. And Miss First, F-U-R-S-T. But Miss First was suspect even to us, because her father was the financier of Dov Rebbe, of Yeshiva. She was suspect. But why is she our teacher? Was there no other teacher in New York? We had to get Saul First Order. Be that as it may, she's teaching us, and she's spelling on the blackboard. She spells the word elephant. She spells it E-L-E-F-A-N-T. I hesitate, but I raise my hand. Miss First, I think you spelled elephant wrong. She said, I'm the teacher, and you were the student. And this is the way you spell elephant. And there are witnesses. Robert Black, the rabbi of Roslyn Synagogue, was in my class. So I said, I know you're the teacher, but I think you're wrong. She says, we're going to go down to Mrs. Morris, the general principal, at the end of the class, and she'll explain the situation. So I didn't know what's going to happen to me. I go to jail. I don't know. But I never emerged from Mrs. Morris' office. And Mrs. Morris takes out this enormous dictionary, like 400-pound dictionary. I don't know if I even saw a dictionary before that. This was a monster dictionary. And she finds the word elephant. And she looks at it and she says, you're both right. That's right. I said, can I see it? Can I see that? She says, yes, you can see it. So the first entry is elephant with PH. And at the end it says, with an F, E-L-E-F-A-N-T, Middle English. You're both right. So I said to myself, I'm not dodging to them, I thought we were studying English, not Middle English. I go home, I asked my mother, who was an artist, is an artist, I said, how do you spell elephant? Just PH, David, what's your problem? You know how to spell elephant. I said, can you spell it with an F? She said, not at all, that's Middle English. And that included, they all stick together. The establishment will always stick together. Miss First was, the principal, Mrs. Morris, is covering for the teacher. As a first grader, I concluded they're all sticking together, they're all covering for each other, and if they're wrong, they're not quite wrong. This is my lesson in first grade. And I will tell you it's the same with the general academic philosophy. They're all covering, you can quote me, they all cover for each other. Each one says the other one's brilliant. And at the end of the day, they can't back up their basic central thesis. Any philosophy which does not cover the key questions is worthless. It's like a beautiful tablecloth which doesn't cover the whole table. It's beautiful, but it's worthless. You can't use it. And philosophies must first show that they work across the key issues. It can't be a beautifully articulated philosophy which works for half the philosophical problems and breaks down the other problems. In my humble opinion, as a graduate of Dover, they're worthless. And if my philosophy cannot handle all the proposed theories, it's also worthless. That has to be the first test. Then we can discuss, if it's not worthless, what is it worth? But if you can't deal with all the key issues, it's worthless, in my humble opinion. And then if it can ostensibly handle the key issues, then we have a starting point of discussion. Okay.
David, if I understand it, you're separating possibility from God.
No, I'm not. I said clearly not. I said I actually say front and center in the book that possibility and potential is at the core of the divine.
Is that?
At the core of the divine. Is at the core of the divine. And I say in the second book that question of potential is the divine. So I don't separate it all. I'm saying I can say with more conviction that possibility is eternal than I can say with conviction that God is eternal. As a simple, regular person. If you ask me as a 7-year-old, David Birnbaum, can I convince you that possibility is eternal? I'd say, could be. I say, can I convince you that God is eternal? I would say, no, you can't convince me as a 7-year-old. It might be true, but you can't convince me. Not at that point. I would need more convincing. But then I merged the two in my books, that possibility and question for potential at the core of the divine. So I'm comfortable with the eternal divine on that basis, personally. And even this discussion is a discussion of philosophy. It's not talking about religious doctrine. My position is that my philosophy works with Judaism and works with religious doctrine. But I'm not pressing the religious case. From the Khalil discussion, it looked like I'm pressing the religious case. I'm fine with his opinion. I appreciate his protecting my right flanks. But that's not my core. It's not my core doctrine. I'm not a theologian. I'm not rabbinic. And I'm very actually nervous when I ever have to deal with that, even when I'm forced to deal with it. It's not my turf. I like to deal with more certitude. I like to deal with things which I can say these follows with a pretty high level of certainty. You can challenge whether possibility is eternal. One can challenge that as well, but it's difficult to challenge that. Very difficult to challenge that theme, and I'm forced to jump on that because I have no choice. There is a universe. Something probably ignited the universe. And something within something within something ignited that. And after many years of discussion, of thought, I vector into that one theme, possibility. Possibility, I have this little roadmap anybody's interested later to look at, summarize 2 books. Possibility then morphs into question of potential. And even question of potential, just to be fair to the audience, you see, and this is actually very important. Classic philosophy, whether Jewish or non-Jewish, is usually linear. Linear means A created B, B created C. You can go through every course in college of philosophy and not come across one non-linear philosophy. A created B, created C. And by the time I finished graduate school, I was convinced that no linear philosophy will ever work. The universe and God, assuming there's a God, is just too complex. It's not so simple. The world is not flat. It's too simple. The world is round. And philosophy is not linear. Whatever it is, it's not linear. And the reason quest for potential is so elegant, frankly, is as follows. Those who read the book know the play. The book hypothesizes as follows. That all the possibilities down the road, including the possibilities of us being here tonight, including the possibilities for your seeing your nephew, your nieces giggling, the possibilities for young boys coming to the Torah, young boys, the possibility for showing mercy, all the zillions and trillions of possibilities down the road, retroactively ignited the cosmos. It's a very powerful theme, especially if it's true. Very powerful. But it would solve the problem. How do we get from nothing to something? But at the core of Quest for Potential is a theme which is hard to argue with, whose eternality is hard to argue with, possibility. And I have to play poet a little bit in developing this. I have no choice. That possibility was aching for realization. Possibility and potential keep looping around themselves on some level. And again, I'm not opposed to, at all, to integrating this with the divine. So, on some level, Quest for Potential, aka also known as the divine, is questing for its own potential. So you have the Quest for Potential looping around itself. Zillions and trillions of eons, seeking actualization, seeking realization. But there's a void. There's no way to express itself. There's no way to express itself. And this timeless eternity, looping infinitely. On some level, sensing all the possibilities down the road. On some level, sensing the possibilities for life. The rabbinics would say, on some level, sensing the possibilities for Torah. But there's no realization until ultimately the cosmos, the void, could not take it anymore. And the creation point emerges. And combining these two pretty elegant themes. One, that possibility is the one concept that we can say with certainty is eternal. And then using this bootstrap concept, that potentials down the road ignite that eternal concept of possibility. We end up with an elegant, very elegant simultaneous solution to every one of these problems. It's scary how a simple theme can solve all these problems. Now, from a religious Jewish perspective, just like my first book, you can view it as threatening, or can you view it, on the other hand, as solidifying it, as making it airtight, bulletproof, elegant. Both my books, you can take either way if you're a religious Jew. Either it's threatening, it threatens the status quo, or you can say, no, we're forced to adjust a little bit, but our net result is much more elegant, cohesive, integrated, and frankly, magnificent religious edifice. But that's an individual choice. My job is to call it as I see it. My job is not to raise, Judaism. Although I don't mind raising it, but that's not my job. It so happens that I think my philosophies do raise it, but that's not my job. My job is to call things as I see it. To try to present a paradigm which is both elegant and which actually works. Okay, next question, sir.
In your first book, you have footnotes as to Mr. Greenberg. Does that happen to be Yitzhak Greenberg?
Of course, right.
Yeah. Can you tell me how you address some of his ideas about averting the Holocaust or future Holocaust, the concept as to the role of man as a partner of God? Is that part of the possibility?
They have to refocus the question. This evening's not about Greenberg. This evening's about Summa. You have a question about Summa, I can address it.
Yeah.
I like Irving Greenberg. He's an extraordinary gentleman. Like many people, like many individuals like Greenberg, they're not really classic philosophers. They sort of write philosophical thought very beautifully, very elegantly often. It's not classic, they're not really philosophers. Like Wiesel's not really a philosopher. The whole crew, I like the crew and I love the crew, and I went through college uplifted by the crew. They're not really philosophers per se. They don't attempt to be philosophers. They don't even say they're philosophers. They're writing about sort of philosophical thought, sort of thematic. A Khalil's speech tonight was philosophical thought. He was not presenting a whole philosophy. He was giving a philosophical spin on Summa. So Greenberg And the crew, that whole crew, and the foreign gentlemen, sort of do that. They give like a philosophical spin on different subjects. I met with Irving Greenberg. I like Irving Greenberg. He's on the back cover of my first book. He gave me a quote. You know, personally, but I'm not here. It's inappropriate for me to get
this in some way related to your concept of
it does,
possibility.
it does, but I mean, you have to refocus the question. You want to think about it?
I'll think about it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, how does your philosophy recognize the concept of impossibility, and how does that kind of get into the paradigm?
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, if everything is possibility always existed,
Right.
that means that all the future had to be, I guess, things had to go forward. Nothing's impossible, right? If you recognize...
No, there's too many jumps here. Possible means it's possible, doesn't mean it's inevitable. Possible is a very general term. It's a very general term. That's its beauty from my perspective. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe there is no ignition. Maybe there is no cosmos, but it's possible. That's why I did allude to before. One can challenge even that. Because one can say you can't even have possibility if there's no possibility for reality. Okay. But that's a very almost obscure argument. So I'm saying even that can be challenged. But of all the concepts that I've heard in my life, it's the one concept that I'm comfortable with is basically unassailable. And I run with that football. I run with that football, and all of a sudden I have the infinite divine. So I'm running with that little possibility, boom, 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 and one chapter into the first book I have the infinite divine. I'm not shy. But it's the only concept that I can run with, and that's the only reason I actually wrote these books. Or else I'm just like everybody else, just starting in the middle of the book somewhere. I hope I've sort of addressed your question. Sense of emotional issue clinically. Okay? Okay? Okay. I always say, and my mechutin is here. Warren Keshner, the father of Raphaela's husband, is here. I told Warren that a philosopher who brave enough to write a book on theodicy has to be prepared, metaphorically, to speak to a 7-year-old girl online to the gas chamber. To that extent. Look her in the eye. The girl says to you, why am I about to die, to be murdered? So I take this stuff very, very seriously. That's why I wrote this book. I'm not cavalierly at all. Same token, I'm very nervous answering it at this point without writing it out carefully. But I'm going to try my best. One has to say to this young lady, as terrible as this situation is, that without the possibility of your being born, without the possibility, however terrible this is, of your being murdered, there can never have been a cosmos. And I'm going to loop around this a few times quickly. And on some level, you created the cosmos. Not that the cosmos was once suffering, but the cosmos needs both the possibility of good and the possibility of evil. Or else there will be no cosmos. That if there were no possibility for Auschwitz, there would be no universe. And the terrible price, and some people paid it more than others, obviously, for the cosmos, the horrendous price is Auschwitz. And it's easy for me to say, obviously, but we're there. But we're trying to do the best we can with what we know. So on some level, you created the cosmos. Now, I delivered this roughly similar presentation at Oheb Tzedek in Manhattan, 95th Street, Yom HaShoah. And they had a contingent Urban Belsen Survivors Association. And trust me when I tell you I was tense. Go back. dozen gentlemen. Then I was about, let's say, 50. They were about 80s, in their 80s. And actually, at that time, I presented what I call author's medrash. It was 7-minute medrash, which is in the book. I don't know if you wanted me to present it now. But I presented that medrash. And afterwards, trust me when I tell you, there's 700 people there, and there are 12 people in Bergen-Belsen. I'm just watching these 12 people. What's the reaction? And they come towards me. I still don't know the reaction. And they gave me hugs, frankly. I don't know who's crying more than them or me. So it passed their test. I told them exactly what I was saying to you now. Now, they lived and they died. You understand? But understand how I feel about it. So it's carefully measured response. My family suffered quite a bit in the Holocaust as well, without getting into it. So, on some level, this was the wind behind my back pushing me to ask these questions initially. And you know, none of us know how we would react in a similar situation. If I got to mental questions, I don't know how I would view this philosophy. I might just say, go to hell. I'm not interested. I just don't know. Nor do I want to be in that position. So I'm telling you in advance, I don't know. I don't know if I'd reject this. This is the best I can do, given what we know. Okay. Next question.
Okay.